Hi everyone, welcome back to Trees and Turtles. My name's Imogen. In today's video, we are talking about general lessons that I learned from solo travelling 10 countries at once. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that. Give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram, and let's get started. So recently I backpacked around Europe. If you are new to this channel, you will not know that, but if you watched my previous few videos, you're probably getting tired of hearing me say it. I backpacked around Europe, 10 countries in 10 days after finishing my degree. And it was great, and I learned a lot of lessons, and I've talked about, like, in other videos, like a lesson I learned from each country, but I wanted to make a separate video about lessons that I learned overall, because country-specific things that you learn aren't necessarily about travel, they might just be about the country, if that makes sense. So, without further ado, here are the lessons that I learned from my Europe trip. And number one is to have all important documents and tickets printed out. Like, obviously, yes, we live in a digital age, but things happen, like your battery pack runs out, your phone runs out, you can't use your data, your Gmail app decides to spontaneously refresh, and then you can't, like, re-download it because you're on your data. Okay, things like that happen. So it's really important to have all important documents and tickets printed out. So you, if need be, like, your phone is dead, but you can still get your transport, you can still get your ticket scanned because you have it printed out. Like, I didn't by any means use all of the tickets that I printed out, but when I did use them, I was extremely grateful that I'd printed them, okay? So have all important documents and tickets printed out. For context, the things I had printed out, I had my itinerary, I had my insurance documents, like for health insurance and stuff, then I had all of my accommodation receipts, like confirmation that I'd booked. I also had all of my travel tickets, and I had an extra folder for stuff that I'd already used. So, like, halfway through the trip, I'd moved like half of my papers into that folder, for example. I can talk more about, like, travel organisation in another video if you're interested, so let me know in the comments if you want to see that. Number two, you need a battery pack, okay? This is, like, self-explanatory, but especially if you have, like, an older phone, and even if you don't, like, especially if you're travelling Europe in the summer, then your screen brightness will probably be all the way up to enable you to see anything at all, and that's very battery hungry. So you're going to need a battery pack, and you're going to need a good battery pack. Seriously, a good battery pack makes all the difference. It can reduce so much stress, and you don't have to worry about when am I next going to charge my phone, because it's on 20% and I've just left the hotel for the day, okay? So you need a battery pack. Okay, lesson number three is to have a couple of €100 in cash. Sometimes places which advertise online as taking card payments are just lying, and you can get there and they'll be like, no, we only take cash, and then you'll be like, what? So have a couple €100 in cash. Seriously, it can save your ass. Night buses are great, but only in moderation, okay? You won't get a lot of sleep. You will constantly be anxious about, like, the other passengers or annoyed by them, or sometimes night buses can be really stressful, okay? So night buses are great because at the same time, you are, like, traveling, but also you're using, like, unproductive time, like night time, to travel, so you get to see more, and you're also at least a little bit rested when you get there. But after, like, a day of, like, a night bus, you really want to go to a hotel, so never book 2 night buses in a row. Like, I didn't make that mistake. I only had 2 night buses on the whole trip, and I had one early in the trip and one late in the trip, and that worked quite well for me. Night buses are great, but only in moderation. And kind of on that point, treat yourself to a nice hotel at least once. I treated myself to a nice hotel in Andorra, and it was so worth it. By that point in the trip, I was really tired, and kind of tired of, like, I'd been in, like, hostels, I'd been on night buses, and I just wanted to be in a nice hotel. So I went to a nice hotel, and it was absolutely worth it for, like, the relaxation. So even if you're on a budget, treat yourself to a nice hotel at least once. It is really good for your mental health, and it will give you some morale to, like, continue with the rest of the trip, especially if you're, like, on budget travel. Nobody has died from being too careful, and if a situation feels sketch, it is sketch, okay? Trust your gut. Especially if you're traveling solo, trust your gut, because you can't, like, being too careful is not a bad thing. Like, anyone who says you're being too careful just is not concerned for your safety, okay? If it feels wrong, it is wrong, and you should nope out of there, okay? I trusted my gut on my Europe trip many times, and it helped me a lot, okay? And I was in some questionable situations, which were not my fault. So nobody has died from being too careful. Be careful. And also on that point, sometimes bad situations are not your fault, and you shouldn't feel guilty if you're scared. Now, I've told this story before in my things that went wrong on my Europe trip video, but I almost got left overnight in Nice when the bus company told me the wrong bus stop. And it was all over, it was on my ticket, it was all over their website with their live updates, and then they went from the other stop. And I was big mad about that. I was like very mad because I could have been left alone overnight in Nice, and that would have been very dangerous for me. And I got on the bus and I was physically shaking. I felt sick. I was so scared that I was going to be left behind. And that was absolutely not my fault. And sometimes bad situations are not your fault. Like, you can be the most organised person in the world and you can still go through something that scares you, and you shouldn't feel guilty if you're scared, because sometimes shit happens and that's not your fault. And on that point, Nice is not a safe place for solo female travellers. I am sorry, but Nice was horrendous. Now, I didn't actually visit it. Like, I transited through Nice, but I still spent a significant amount of time there. I had like a 6-hour wait for the bus, and I was absolutely terrified because there were some very scary men, and it was not a good time at all. And I'm very glad that I didn't get left overnight there, because that would have been very dangerous for me. So Nice is not a safe place for solo female travellers, and I would recommend it to absolutely no one. And finally, you should maybe plan a chill day in the middle of the trip. It was very hectic to move to a new country every day. Now, I'm aware I brought this on myself by moving to a new country every day, but I'm thinking maybe I should have like planned like an 11-day trip and then just like done one day in the middle just to chill, so I wasn't like moving on to a new country every day, because I was very tired by the end of it. Like, it was worth it, don't get me wrong, but I was tired. So maybe you should plan a chill day in the middle of the trip. Maybe you should. Alright, these are lessons I learned from solo travelling 10 countries at once. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that. Give this video a thumbs up. Follow me on Instagram, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye!